Hello, everyone. Welcome to King's Talk, presented by Cap to the Crown. This is Tony. With me, as always, we've got John. It's been a minute since we've talked, almost a month now. What has been like three weeks, John? Almost 3 weeks. But
I don't know. I've been in. I don't know what's going on.
I haven't talked to you in those 3 weeks at all because we're not friends. How you been?
Well, that's interesting for you to ask since we're not friends. But since you asked, feels pretty good. Basketball's coming back. I'm sure fans are excited, but you know what? At the end of the day, I think what people are most, kind of, all in anticipation for is the fact that you and I are returning for another season of covering the Sacramento Kings, the people's reporters here at Cap City Crown, if you can call us that.
People's blog.
That's right. Yeah.
I kind of like that.
It's the people's blog, We hold power to account, We're like your local news station's investigative team. We investigate completely trivial things, but hey, who else is going to investigate them?
Who's going to investigate on, the third center for the Kings this year?
Seriously.
Yeah.
That's
or how to pronounce Monte McNair. Correct.
You know what? I think we'll have to get into that at one point. We might have to do a 15-minute segment.
I think we should do a whole full segment. I mean, we literally were off for 3 weeks. We could have done, just an episode on that and who's correct.
We could probably do a few, maybe one every week. It's a special debate version, installment number 60. Is it Monty or Monte McNair? And I mean, that's how tense of a debate it is. We'd really it'd have to be 100-round fight.
I have a question. Was it Monty or Monte Ball, the running back?
It was Monte Ball.
Monte Ball. But he had 2 E's, right?
I have no idea.
I think
he was
he
just
did.
In ball on the fantasy thing, I thought.
Monte Ball scored like 80 touchdowns in his college career and just did nothing. It was Monte Ball, like spelled with 2 E's.
Monte Ball? That just doesn't sound good. Monte Ball. Well, I don't know. That's just kind of.
I like Monte Ball better than Monte Ball.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like the slugger on the local T-ball team. It's Monty Ball. We call him Monster T-ball, but we call him Monty Ball for short.
Monster T-ball.
He's like a 17-year-old just playing freaking T-ball against a bunch of 5-year-olds.
Monty Ball.
Smoking him down the third baseline. He's like, "Come on, it's a hot corner, kid.
Where's the Monday
you got to cover
T-ball?
that ground."
Yeah. So every now and then, I used, because I play Little League and stuff, and I remember one time, I guess not every now and then, just one time, but I was like leaving, like I was in like majors or whatever. I was like leaving. There was like a T-ball game going on, and they were like on like the major minor field because like they have the same size field. It's just like different age groups. I saw one T-ball kid hit it to the fence. It was crazy. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I wonder where you are now.
It's like Aaron Judge.
Honestly, I'm like, geez. To the fence?
Once we found out Aaron Judge was like, yeah, I didn't even play Little League. I just stayed in T-ball till the end of high school. That's why I can smoke it.
I mean, that builds confidence, I guess. I mean, okay, just going off the rails now. That's kind of what happens sometimes. Like, I don't know. I don't have a kid. I've only ever played T-ball. I've never watched it, never coached it. How do you like
umpire?
I did umpire, but not T-ball in my defense.
That's fair.
How do you change innings? Like, do you have to wait for 3 outs to happen? Or is it just like it's been 15 minutes, like switch, or like we batted through the order? Like, let's change it up. There's no way they're getting 3 outs that quickly.
Yeah, definitely not every time. If I remember correctly, it was some kind of like either batter count or time count. It was probably a batter count. Like if you go through the lineup twice, maybe we should change sides here.
And it's 100-0. We have 5 more innings to play.
The coaches are just like, you got to get out there. I don't care. It's 100 degrees out there. You got to finish this inning. Throw freaking strikes. It's T-ball, coach. What the hell are you talking about, throw strikes? I want to coach T-ball and just be a complete hard ass now.
Just be a total, just lay into these 4 and 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
You sure you're not gonna you're not gonna hustle out that play? You're gonna go to the bench.
Listen, if your parents aren't going to hit you, I will.
Oh my goodness.
It's probably a good opportunity to move on to the topic that people might be here to listen to.
Yeah, the Sacramento Kings, the Sacramento Cap City Kings.
Cap City Sac Kings Stock Kings.
There we go. That's what it is. Training camp starts in what, a week? I forget.
Today, yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, next Tuesday.
Tuesday, because Monday's media day. Everybody's
media day. Yes, exciting media day. Training camp, yeah. So Kings got what, 19 of the 20 possible people signed to a training camp roster, I guess, or signed that are coming to training camp. Sorry, it's been 3 weeks. I can't speak well.
Close enough.
Yeah, I mean, other than the third point guard, I mean, the Kings, and I guess we haven't really talked much since, so it'd be kind of getting into something. I guess before training camp, the Kings cut Kata, or I should say wove them. They waived them. They waived Kata and
Nerlens Noel.
The other guy, Nerlens Noel. Which is so funny because I'm like, dude, we got Noel. We've been looking for this guy forever. And then he just cut before training camp. Yeah.
Nobody's. Kata's in Boston. Good move for him. But
yeah, because the Kings signed McGee, and sounds like they're going to go with the McGee and Len as the 2 backup true centers. Because obviously, I think we all think that Trey Lyles will be playing the backup 5 at points in this season. So, I mean, it seems like the roster from what, the 15-man roster, I don't know, is that kind of set, or do you think we're still waiting on I don't know. I haven't counted, I guess, in my head.
Well, I think the count is there's 14 guys that are going to look to make the team. That look like they're going to make the team, from Fox all the way down to, Kessler Edwards, however you want to put it. I don't know. I mean, not every team carries 15 guys, so I don't know what they're gonna do. Like you said, the third point guard thing, it seems like they're just foregoing that, which seems like they'll be able to get away with, considering all the guys that can handle the ball. But I don't know if they're gonna make a move or anything like that. I feel like if they made a move, it wouldn't really be anybody that's exciting. Obviously, it's not like they're going to bring Terrence Davis back, I don't think. Although he's not signed. That's so.
I was going to say,
because it seemed like in July they were Boston's looking at him. I think and a couple other teams were interested, and he's training camp is a week away, and he is not signed by anybody, which is really surprising to me.
That is because he was, as a third string shooting guard, he was pretty dependable when his name was called.
Oh, he was their best player in Game 7.
He was their best game in their first TNT game in 3 years against the Nets.
Hey, man. Wasn't that great? This is the first national TV game. It's just all these people are going to think Terrence Davis is 6th man of the year candidate.
Dude, Terrence Davis, we should trade for him right now.
Give that guy an extension.
TD2.
Yeah, that is strange to me. I don't know why he wouldn't get signed somewhere, though. He's a very quality player. Yeah, sucks for TD, I guess.
Yeah, TD, touchdown, touchdown Davis.
There's a lot of spots in the NFL. Maybe he can get a shot there.
Yeah, shoot, why not? He could probably, play the tight end position, maybe linebacker. Probably be a linebacker. I don't know football that well.
Just he can be the quarterback for the Jets.
And New York signs Terrence Davis II to replace Aaron Rodgers,
former NBA star, and people are like, who?
Okay. Back. We'll try to keep each other on track.
Yes. Yes. We're clearly doing a good job of holding each other accountable.
Yeah. Training camp. So, I mean, what are you looking forward to?
Well, it's we clearly did a nice job of discussing this before the podcast. But it's the season ahead. I want to kind of save like big picture. What's the team going to do? Over unders, things like that for next week. I don't even think over unders are out yet. I think they come out with the week of training camp, so we get to play with that.
Like the official over unders. Like, what's the official over under? Caesars.
Yeah, different sports books, but I think they only have those out for win-loss totals, and they usually put out over-unders on stats for guys.
Oh, I see. So I thought you were talking about like the wins of the Kings or something.
That's out. I think they're at 40. I think they have them at 44, 45. I think on a lot of sports books.
Yeah,
like 3, 4, 5 games above 500. But I think this week you can go through. We put out on the website an article or a series of articles, two parts of questions, pre-training camp for each guy regarding the season ahead, kind of trying to feel out what some guys are going to bring, whether they can step up to certain challenges, whether they can make a certain evolution, what they can do. So I think it might be, prudent to go through one by one. We don't have to do all of them. I don't think all the questions, I don't think, like, for instance, a guy like Trey Lyles has too many questions in my mind. And then, obviously a guy like De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis are good, but I do think that they've got questions that are worth asking and talking about. So we'll go through most of them. Any of them we don't get into, feel free to check out the website, give the article a read, give it a like, maybe.
Give it a like, give it a comment, give it a subscription. I don't care if you have to
sign into your account that you maybe don't remember the password for. Just make a new account.
You don't even need to comment or like. You can just
really?
Comment. You just have to put down your email, and that's it.
Yes.
Make up an email for all I care. I don't care. It's just, just write your comment, throw in something to that email field, and your comment will pop up.
Yes. Tell us if you agree. Tell us if you can add anything. Leave the mean stuff. Actually, no, write the mean stuff. I love
write whatever you want, whatever you care.
If you just want to tell us what you had for breakfast, whether you're going to get back into cycling or something big in your life. I don't know. Just if
you want to tell us why John's just the worst article writer in Sacramento Kings history, I mean, just feel free to lay it out.
Yeah. Go ahead and condemn my use of commas, maybe, or M dashes and stuff like that. Like, what is this guy doing? It's unreadable, this stuff. Does he know the difference between, this word and that word? I don't know.
Does he know the difference between effect and effect?
Dude, that sticks with me. I was like, dude, come on. One mistake, and just got piled on for it last summer.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it was like during summer league, I was like really focusing on like covering Keegan Murray in summer league, and I was like, it was like in the second paragraph, and someone was like, "I'm not going to read this if the author doesn't even know the difference between effect and effect." And I'm like, okay, I got it right in the rest of the article. You can't give me the benefit of the doubt. Come on.
No, you lost me. 2 words in.
Yeah, this is a very compositional focused society. If you can't have proper grammar and use of words, you're not going to make it in this world.
I mean, you know what? We lost a fan out there, and I'll never stop thinking about it.
I light a candle and remember.
We lost a reader.
We lost a reader.
We lost a reader.
We're down to 4 again. But, okay, player questions. Let's start at the top, huh?
Okay.
How's that?
Do you have them open? I don't have them open.
I got them open.
Just ask away. You're the interviewee. Or no, you're the interviewer, I guess.
Interviewer, and Tony's the expert.
I'm the expert. Tony. I know everything Kings related.
That's right. De'Aaron Fox. Is he going to make the jump to becoming an MVP candidate?
I mean, I'm trying to think about that one. Because I feel like, honestly, he made the jump last year into actually, like, putting his name out there, especially in the playoffs. Personally, I think he's already there, considering what he did to end last season and being the clutch player of the year, going off in his first postseason appearance. I think he's there already, personally. Can he maintain a full season of where, not just maintain a full season of MVP type numbers, but will the rest of the team has to be decent around him to, be in that legit MVP discussion, because they're going to have to be one of the better teams in the West. He's not winning MVP as like the 5th seed unless he really puts up crazy numbers. So, I mean, I guess that's a two-parter in my head. I think he's already at that MVP level. Just of what he means in the clutch, what he means to the team. But I don't see him winning MVP next year, though, like realistically. I think he can put up the same numbers in like 3 years with even like a better team with Keegan Murray, like coming out a little like as like a legit star. I think that's when we'll actually see his name in that MVP discussion as a legitimate guy in that race. But I mean, his play is, I'll take Fox. I think he's one of the better guards in the league, and I think he's just being overshadowed right now just because the Kings haven't accomplished what, you see those other star players, their teams have accomplished or have those accolades that other star players have on their resume. That makes sense?
Yeah. And I mean, I completely agree. I think you're right. I mean, Fox has to be, people are already mentioning him in that. It's well understood that he's one of, if not the hardest players to stay in front of. He's clutch as ever. It is about, I think a huge factor in that is putting together a great season end to end. He did a pretty damn good job of that last season. He got off to a great start. He closed out very well. You'd like to see him fill in the gaps a little bit more, but he's a guy that's obviously over the last year, really a year and a half since the Sabonis trade, the reinvigoration within him has been there, and he's got all the motivation in the world to be the best and to make his team the best that they can be. But I think one of the things that is interesting to throw out there is that, I mean, he's Supermax eligible, as Bobby Marks of ESPN pointed out a couple weeks ago. Or he's going to be Supermax eligible, basically. He's got to have 6 years under his belt. That'll happen after this season. And he's either got to make another All-NBA team this season or next season, or he's got to win an MVP. And if he wins will he win an MVP? Even if he's able to put, even if everything goes right, there's still going to be other guys out there that are making a great case for themselves to be MVP. It's not a sure thing, but hey, if he wins that MVP, he's automatically Supermax eligible. I mean, he can win another All-NBA team and do it, but that's the ultimate goal. I mean, that's the highest level of ambition, and I think that's an interesting factor in it. Could be a little added motivation. Will he win MVP? I don't know. And I totally agree with you. In terms of making the jump to being an MVP candidate, that's probably already done based on what he did last season and based on what he did in the playoffs specifically, and even with a freaking broken finger. So
honestly,
yeah, I'm really looking forward. I mean, anytime Fox plays, you got to be looking forward to watching him. But it's going to be very interesting to see what he's like this season. With it's a full season of Baby Rain. So
Baby Rain,
as they call him. When he gets older, is he going to be Toddler Rain, and then Juvenile Rain, and then Young Adult Rain? Because everybody refers to him as Baby Rain. I feel like everybody, when they refer to him, Baby Rain,
Baby Rain,
or Geriatric Rain. But anyways, that's enough of the Fox situation. Geriatric Rain, way down the line. I remember covering De'Aaron Fox. Geriatric Rain, your dad was the best. Anyway.
Yes.
Domantas Sabonis.
Domas.
Domas, I want to preface this by saying, obviously, we maybe even more so than Fox, at least this past season, things can change this year. Fox could go just superhero mode for 80 out of 82 games or whatever and just go off. But Sabonis, there's a reason he was getting some votes in the MVP race. I mean, Fox got some too, but Sabonis finished higher, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yes.
In terms of Sabonis, there's not a lot of complaints, especially when it comes to the regular season. You know what you're going to get out of him. He's going to give you, 18 to 20 points a game, a lot of freaking rebounds, and then hopefully again over 7 assists. I don't really have questions or concerns about Sabonis, except when it gets to the specific matchups thing. We saw what happened in the playoffs, and there's a range of different questions you can ask about certain matchups. But one of the ones that comes to mind for me is, will Sabonis be able to hit and reach into his back pocket to hit jumpers when challenged to do so? We saw Kevon Looney and other defenders sag off Sabonis, and there were times where he went to the basket. Sometimes he didn't look so good. Sometimes he looked fine. But he really had to work for his hoops. It really changed the dynamic of how the Kings had to play. And, maybe this it's not a cure all, but if Sabonis was a little more comfortable with just putting up a jumper, which he can do, he hit mid-range shots at a very efficient clip, albeit not on a huge volume. He shot 37% from three, albeit not on a huge volume. But it's almost like about just being able to pull that trigger. Can Sabonis get to that level? I mean, he just experienced a series where obviously they didn't lose because of him. There were a lot of different factors in a 7-game series, but that's as big of a sign as any to maybe start thinking about that as a weapon in his repertoire. Do you think that he'll be a little more comfortable, a little bit more, have a reflex to pull that trigger when he needs to?
Man, I don't know. This is a tough question. I don't know. I haven't really. I don't know what Domas has been working on this offseason too much. I haven't seen many like clips or videos of him this offseason. I know he was. He was at? No, was he? Never mind. Sorry. I just, it was obviously an issue that really got highlighted during the postseason. And yeah, I mean, he was fine like during the regular season. I never had an issue with him taking a mid range, and it felt like he was pretty comfortable. It was just like the pressure situation. It seemed like it just got to him, and he just started missing them, and really got highlighted when he couldn't get assists because Huerter and Barnes weren't hitting threes like at all during that series either. So I don't really expect it to change too crazily. Like, I think he's just going to keep hitting them at the same rate he hit them last year. I don't know. I just like the pressure situation. Will he succumb to the pressure again that like he did in the postseason? I don't think we're going to see like an influx of his shots at the mid range. I think he's just going to keep taking them at the same clip as he was and knocking them down at what do you know the percentage he shot at the mid range?
Not collectively, but I was looking at like StatMuse and looked at a shot chart, and anything in and around that mid-range area, they were all in the good color blue. Over like closer to 50%, like over 40.
That's what I assume. I mean, I remember him being pretty good from there. Like at least like you had to respect it, So hopefully he worked on it a little, just so that when it actually matters, like it did. He can keep knocking them down like he was during the regular season. Because even if he shot like, I don't know, just like what he was doing during the regular season, during the playoffs, because it was bad. He did not shoot well from that mid range, and that was it. His offensive performance just kind of tanked because of it.
Yeah,
his efficiency.
I think one of the things is you will see him. I think there's no way he's coming out of this going like, oh, I don't know. I don't have to get more comfortable with that shot or be more willing to reach into my pocket for that one. I think he's going to be ready for that. But one of the things that's interesting is with Vezenkov here, with Lyles being able to be more of a backup five. I mean, we saw in the playoffs, I think of all the lineups in the playoffs, the best overall rating was Lyles at the five. It was like I think it was Fox, Monk, Terrence Davis, Keegan Murray, and Trey Lyles in that series was really good. So if the situation comes, because that was a really matchup-based situation, we said a lot, in and around that playoff series. Had the Kings gone on to play the Lakers or somebody else, Sabonis would not have faced the same issues necessarily. I'm sure there would have been a little bit of note stealing from the Lakers. They would have like taken cues from that series, obviously, but it's a different team. They play differently. I don't think that those issues would have been as glaring against the Lakers. So like I preface this with, this is not a huge issue for Sabonis, especially through the regular season. This is rarely going to be coming up, I think. But I guess it's just about, maybe you're right. Maybe it comes down to just being able to overcome adversity and make adjustments throughout high pressure situations. But, if that never happened in the playoffs, I don't know what my question would have been for Sabonis. So thank you, Domas, for struggling.
Yeah.
I started writing the segment for Sabonis down in frickin' May. I swear to God. But yeah, in terms of like work he did this offseason, I don't think we heard anything about him working with Chris Matthews, lethal shooter guy, like he did last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's more of a 3-point type of thing. But it'll be interesting to see with Sabonis. I mean, again, that question is really specific to probably more the playoffs and specific matchups in the playoffs. But,
Yeah.
So good job, Domas. Moving down the line here, let's go with Harrison Barnes.
Good old Harry.
Harry Barnes, HB40.
HB40.
Red wine. Will he see more rest this season? I mean, you can take that as, should he see more rest this season as well? Because he did, of course, play 82 games. He's the only player on the team to do that. And then over the past 5 seasons, he's played 12,365 minutes, which is 4th among all NBA players behind McCall Bridges, DeMar DeRozan, and Jason Tatum. He plays a lot.
I'm going to group this one,
this
question, with the Duarte one, because I believe your question for Duarte is, can Duarte put together a full season healthy, right?
Right. Or more or less healthy.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I just think it's going to really be dependent on Duarte, because, I mean, like I've said several times over this podcast over the years, like Barnes has not really had a backup at that 3 position to him since he's joined the Kings. And we finally have one in Duarte where he can actually play consistent minutes. Like, yeah, we have Kessler Edwards now, but I don't know. I'm still not totally sold on Kessler Edwards. He still seems more like a matchups guy. Maybe he can really carve himself out a role at that backup 3, but I'm personally not convinced yet. So I think it just really has it really falls on Duarte. Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be efficient on top of that? I mean, I think Duarte can be an efficient player. I know he didn't have the best year last year. Again, struggled with injury because of it. So if Duarte can stay healthy, 1, I think he can be efficient because of it, and 2, he can take those minutes off of Barnes. So I just think it's just very dependent on what Duarte can do. If he can be efficient and healthy, and I think if he's healthy, I think he can be efficient.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think there's so many things that it's contingent on. And I think another thing is, even if Duarte stays healthy, even if you feel like you do have good depth there at the wing, is Harrison Barnes going to want to take a rest? I mean, do you think Mike Brown was starting the season going like, no, I want Harrison Barnes to play 82 games? No, that sounds like a Harrison Barnes being the competitor that he is. That's his thing. So almost another thing that is contingent on too. Obviously, I think your point actually is a little more. That feels.
No. Are you going to bring up Keegan now? Yeah.
No. But with Mike Brown, is he going to be able to step in over Harrison Barnes and be like, hey, you're going to take this game off, and I'm going to give you rest games throughout the season, especially later in the year? Because an important point to note is Harrison Barnes, up there with Kevin Huerter, who we'll get to, did not look very good in the playoffs. And, we talked about Sabonis, the issues that he faced in a playoff series. Well, that was very matchup based. It just seemed like, regardless of who the Kings were playing, Barnes seemed not himself. And he had a pretty good season. He kind of got off to a slow start in terms of 3-point shooting, but overall, he kind of had the season I sort of expected him to have. And I just think that it's going to be key because he is so important in a lot of different ways. And you do have the extra depth. It just seems like a no-brainer that this is kind of almost on Mike Brown to just be the head coach here and be the executive officer and just override Barnes's intentions and ambitions. So I would just throw that out there.
Yeah, and sorry, I thought I was reading your mind back there. I also think because I believe your question for Keegan is, will we see Keegan at the three, right?
Yeah.
So I mean that's going to play into it significantly as well because unlike I think if you look at the power forward and even the center, like the depth of those two positions, it's a lot like wealthier than like the small forward position. And Duarte, yeah, it got a little better with Duarte again. Can he stay healthy? That's a contingent factor right there. Um, and then Kessler Edwards is, I'd much rather have, I think, two backups in Lynn and JaVale to Sabonis and Vezenkov and Lyles to Keegan at the four positions a lot better than that three depth. So if you move Keegan to the three a little more, I mean, you have two great backups that can play that four position. Right? And even if Lyles goes to the five, you still have Vezenkov at the four. And I mean, I think that could be a factor too. If we see Keegan more at the three, then I mean, he's almost like a backup in a way as well as Duarte would be. Because even though Keegan will be playing starter minutes, Keegan won't need to hold down the four as much. Just because, I mean, we haven't seen Vezenkov play yet, but they seem to have high hopes for this kid. And I mean, we saw what Lyles was able to do last year. So, I mean, that's definitely going to be a factor as well, depending
Yeah.
on where Keegan plays. And it sounds like they want to move him there. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, how much do you envision Keegan Murray playing at the three? Obviously, I think what you're referencing is when Vezenkov was about to sign Christosaltis of Sportle out of Greece. I was going to say out of Greece, reported that as part of the role for Vezenkov backing up Murray at the four, a huge factor into that, and a huge factor that's going to impact or give Vezenkov more minutes is the fact that they do want to play Murray more at the three. So, and we saw what he did at the California Classic. Granted, that's against summer league talent. How much do you think you'll see Murray at the three? Do you think it's an adjustment thing? Do you think it's something that'll get worked in, or do you think it's something that's going to be kind of immediate?
man, I mean, I don't. I mean, maybe immediate in this, like, in the sense it will be immediate. They'll try to plug him in there, but I think the success will come later. I think they'll. I mean, I think it sounds like they are. It sounds like they're going to try to plug Keegan at that three when they can, give Barnes some rest, bring in Vezenkov and or Lyles or whoever, and then let him work out what he's got to do to be the three. I mean, the Kings, yeah, they're looking to win the title right now still. Well, I mean, more so than last season, I should say. But I mean, realistically, and I hate to say it, I mean, until Keegan Murray can really develop into that star player, and if they want him to be that star at the three, then that's when they become legit title contenders. I mean, a lot's riding on this guy, and we're all hoping for a huge jump from him. But you got to start working on him like immediately, so he can really take that next jump. So I think he'll be put in there immediately, not like starting at the three, but kind of transitioning over there when they need him to, and then just see how the results are, I suppose.
Yeah, I think a big tell will be that first preseason game up in Vancouver against the Raptors. Uh, that might be an opportunity where they kind of see what it's like with Murray kind of being more of a three there. That'd be interesting. But I think getting started on it with that's clearly the long term goal, and he's proven that even if it's a little rough at first, anything Keegan Murray does, even if it's a little rough at first, the adjustment comes through at some point. You saw him overcome the struggles in November. You saw him overcome the struggles in the first 4 games of the series against the Warriors. And then what did he do? He bounced back. He came back better than ever. And yeah, I mean, it's really kind of just a question of when, and getting started on it earlier rather than later obviously helps the cause as a whole. But Keegan Murray is another one of those guys where I was just like, I didn't want to make it is he gonna have the sophomore slump? That's such a dumb question. I mean, like, I don't know. He's too good of a shooter to have a sophomore slump, I feel like.
And I feel like sophomore slumps, honestly, they're not as prevalent in the NBA as maybe the MLB
True.
or even NFL.
Yeah. And it's not like Keegan Murray was like dribbling the ball, had the ball in his hands a bunch, and now guys are like, well, we just make him go this way or defend him that way. Um, they're going to have to adjust too if Keegan Murray starts putting the ball on the floor. But
Hmm.
yeah, Keegan Murray, before I move further down this article, Kevin Huerter. This one was easy. Fans know it. Probably people involved in the team know it. And most importantly, Kevin Huerter knows it as himself. It's all about conditioning for Huerter. Is it going to be sufficient enough to prevent a late season fizzle? You saw him kind of begin to kind of took some steps back, I think in January and February. His 3-point percentage was kind of declining month to month. He had a great March. He bounced back then, but then we saw him that grand fizzle out happened in the playoffs. And, he said at the post season or the after the season press conference that he knows he's got to be able to be in the best shape of his life, essentially, because of the movement within the offense, and which was obviously requiring Huerter to be far more active than he was ever going to be in Atlanta. It's all about conditioning. He knows it. We know it. Maybe that kind of gives the answer away, but is it going to be good enough to take him through April into May, maybe into June? It's got to be, right?
I mean, yeah. It's gotta be. I mean, will it? We hope so. I mean, he's obviously going to take his conditioning serious this off season. He said he would. So I think we all expect big improvements just because it sounds like he knows the issue. We all know the issue. He's working to resolve that issue. So I think he'll be better, if anything, I suppose. Yeah. But I guess it can only tell. He's never trained like this, it sounds like, before. So maybe he's going to learn something even more next offseason. He's like, dang, I was feeling really good into March this time, but April hit and dang, I wish I'd hit the, treadmill a little harder during or whatever, the conditioning during the offseason. So it's definitely going to improve, but how well, I guess that's just, we'll find out together.
I think the biggest marker will be on the defensive end because I feel like he's got plenty of work to do in terms of on-ball defense. And when you're getting fatigued, you're getting tired legs, that seemed to be even more glaring. So the sustainability of his shooting throughout the year will obviously be a big tell, but I want to see what he does defensively because I think that conditioning will really factor into his defense because it's not like he's terrible on ball. It's not like he gets blown by all the time. Sometimes he puts up some really good efforts, but then there'll just be a moment where it's just on a couple plays in the first or second quarter, someone will just zoom by him a few times. I think there were a few instances late in the year where I think in a game against the Rockets before he moved, I think Eric Gordon blew by Eric Gordon, who's 40 years old, blew by Kevin Huerter twice in a game, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just one of those things where it's you can't let that happen, And we talked about when the Kings got Huerter last year, it's this guy can really be a two-way impact player. He can be good enough on the defensive end. He can obviously be one of the best offensive weapons on the team. And in terms of, as he put it at his post into the season press conference, his role on the team is to continue to get better in his role. And of course that comes down to conditioning, but that conditioning really it's got to be there because it's got to impact the defensive end of the floor big time. So yeah, Huerter, he's just going to come in ripped as ever. He's going to look like a freaking linebacker or something. Kevin Huerter, he's going to play the 4 now.
He was at that Niners game with Keegan on last Thursday. I don't think he was looking linebacker-ish. Yeah, I think the Kings posted it. Let me look at him. I guess.
Let's look him up. Check out his Insta. Let's hack into his DMs.
That's true. You look at, I don't know. I'm gonna look up the Kings. I know the Kings definitely posted him. When I say definitely, oh yeah, here he is. He looks
the same.
I think he looks a little more cut, actually. He looks a
Yeah.
little trimmer. Are you looking or no?
No, I'm not. I'm just kind of imagining it based on your description.
Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Just,
now that you mention it.
no, he definitely looks a little more trim in my opinion. Let me go to his actual Instagram page. He was in a wedding 2 weeks ago.
What do you wear?
He lost a brother, but
Oh,
he gained a sister.
what? Did he go to a marriage or a funeral?
I know, I don't know.
That seems very cryptic.
Right? Because I'm
What
like,
did
why
you
would he
do
lose
at
a
a
brother?
wedding? Kevon, what'd you do?
Did he lose a brother because his brothers got married or something? He's like, see ya.
Can't hang with the gang anymore.
Kayvon Huerter, dude. I mean, I think he looks trim.
All right. Well, that was a lot of work to just come to that conclusion. But okay, moving on. Malik Monk.
Malik Monk
I,
means king.
that's right, Malik
Malik means king, huh?
King
I keep
Monk.
thinking monk means king. Monk fruit. Have you ever had monk fruit?
I don't believe I have. Any good?
I've never had it either.
Oh, interesting. Well,
Yeah.
that was invigorating. Malik Monk. I think we know where this question's going. Can he make it into that top 3 6-man of the year voting? Can he win it? What does it come down to you?
I mean, come on. It's consistency. I mean, he could have won it last year if he just played consistently the whole year. I'm not talking about like the games he had in like game 1 against the Warriors or that game he had against the Clippers where the Kings scored like 176 points. It's just like, dude, like just don't like when you have a bad game, just don't have it be like 1 for 10, which is out like 2 assists. It's like, it's just consistency. I've said it all year or all last season. He's just like the definition of streaky. I mean, when that dude's on a roll, he's on a freaking roll, and he doesn't even need to keep it up to that effect, the whole season. But man, when he's cold, that dude cannot hit the broadside of a bar, and it's hard to watch sometimes. It's like, so I mean, it's just gonna fall down to consistency, and just not having those really terrible games in a row. Because he has a stretch of them in a row, and it's just like, dude, you're shooting yourself in your foot. So I mean, I guess just consistency.
Yeah. And I think something I was thinking about is, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like late December into the first part of January, talking about some of the cold spells. I think one of the things that was mixed in with that was, I think Malik Monk might even sat a game or two due to injury, and I know he was listed on the injury report a few times through a few week period. And Mike Brown talked about him being banged up here and there. And of course, guys get banged up throughout the season. They're playing through certain injuries and little nicks here or there. But Malik Monk's a small guy. He's not tall. He's not extremely broad, or he doesn't have a big frame. And he had a role. I mean, you heard him say a lot, especially early on, where people are like, man, this guy's getting 4 assists off the bench every game. Nobody expected that. And he talks about how Mike Brown's kind of allowed him to play a certain way. So maybe there's like an adjustment period where he just needed to get a season playing to that, extent. But I think a part of it might just be, is he physically able to maintain that kind of level of play, that effort throughout a season? He didn't miss substantial time. Obviously, he was, in terms of availability, he was good, but guys play through a lot. I almost feel like it kind of comes down to, of course, it does come down to consistency, but a part of staying consistent might just kind of come down to physical sustainability, which, talking about depth and stuff like that, that could be mitigated pretty easily, considering the fact that obviously I think Monk's going to have the role that he had last season. When he, like you said, when he's on, he really looks like one of the top 5 players on the team when he's on. But cold spells and stuff like that, there'll be more opportunities for other guys to kind of get in there and handle the ball, maybe like Duarte, depending on the steps Mitchell takes this season. That will hopefully help Monk kind of maintain that consistency and that stability and sustainable kind of efforts throughout the year. But it'll be interesting from him. I mean, it's one of those things where when your question is, can you be good enough to be in the top 3 for sixth man of the year or take the award home? Because I think he was 5th in voting. It's like not too many concerns about Monk, but that consistency thing I think is always going to come up, and that's the key to him. Speaking of Davion, though, I think this one's also a no-brainer in terms of questions to ask, but will his shooting improve at all? He's 2 years in. I think he's shooting just 31.7% from 3. I think he was closer to 30. I think he was a little like 32% the year before, this past season. But clearly, I mean, regardless of whether or not Davion Mitchell's defense should have been out there in game 6 and 7 more against the Warriors, it's a fair critique to be like, hey, if this guy really wants to be on the floor, he's got to have that two-way, impact. And that two-way impact, because the defense is always going to be there, that really is super, super contingent on whether or not he's going to be able to be a three-point threat. And I think he got off to a decent start in the series from 3, and then it just fell off. And it was kind of typical things that you see at Davion. It goes a couple weeks where it's just like, this guy can't hit anything. And, I mean, will it improve? 2 years in, and it hasn't really improved. He really only had one good three-point shooting season in college, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I know your kind of thoughts on this. I think you're a little more realistic about Davion's shooting. Do you think it'll improve? And I'm not just saying like, oh yeah, he'll shoot 33% this year, but like 30, 35%, like that kind of stuff that will actually get him on the floor. I mean, Kessler Edwards was so great because he played great defense late in the year, and he was shooting about 34, 35%. It was just good enough. And, you talk about Davion, it's like, well, now you've got, like, think about the main additions this season, Duarte and Vezenkov. It doesn't matter if Vezenkov has trouble on defense or Duarte has trouble staying healthy. When they're out there, they're going to be way better shooters than Davion could ever dream of being. So Davion's got to at least get somewhat better. And in terms of unlocking him to be the guy that, reach the ceiling that maybe people imagine, that shooting's got to be there. And it's just a question of, is it going to come up? And I don't know. I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but it's hard to be optimistic that he's just going to come out and shoot 35% this season or something close to that.
It is hard to be optimistic. I've never really liked Davion's shot form. He just kind of looks more like a chucker than a pure shooter. The only reason I'm going to say that I could see it improving is that it looks like, I think just like last offseason, but just like last offseason, this offseason, he seems to be putting in the work in his shot. He's been training with Steph's trainer. He's been training with Steph a little. He went to some mini camps with them. He said he's been able to pick Steph's brain on his shot form and, what goes into being a good shooter. So, I mean, hopefully that helps. Sometimes, you're stuck with what you are. And, I mean, obviously, who better to ask from advice from than Steph, right? But I don't know. I think he at that point would just need a drastic change in his shot form. Is it just too late in his career now? I mean, not like his career is obviously only 2 seasons old, but I mean, he's 24 now, 23, 24, 25. I know he's kind of an older rookie. I mean, just changing your shot like that, it's not that simple. So, well, I'm interested to see really how his shot looks going into the season after training with Steph and his trainer. But I definitely have my doubts still just because of what he's shown the last 2 years and like how bad his shot can look at times. And when you're like a decent shooter, sometimes it's just like, I don't know. It's like, dude, geez, you look awful like shooting the ball.
Yeah. And it's another thing where it's just like, was it midway through his rookie season? If I'm not mistaken, midway through his rookie season, it seemed like there just was a ton of arc on the ball that wasn't there at the beginning. Is that right? Or did he come in his rookie year with that kind of arc? Or was that kind of an adjustment?
I think it was an adjustment. Like when it started like having like the high ass arc and you're like, where did this come from? Yeah, it was it the end of his rookie year or just going into last season? I can't remember.
I think it was the end of his rookie year, and he actually started. I mean, that was kind of like I think the arc came in a little bit beforehand, but it kind of looked pretty good. I mean, he was getting things to fall. I think when he was stepping in to be a starter after Fox was essentially out for the season for the final whatever game, how many games it was. But I don't know, how many modifications can you make to your shot before you're just like, well, now you're throwing too much at it.
Yeah,
And it's just
exactly.
like, I mean, obviously, when you go to learn stuff from Steph, you're not trying to replicate his ability to create space and have fluid movement and just be so quick to get the ball up in such a consistent fashion. But it's like, I don't know. I mean, that does come into play in some regard. I mean, Davion, I don't imagine him ever. I don't know. Clearly, he's not going to be as fluid of a shooter as Steph, but it's just like, how much is that really going to do? I don't know. I think it's one of those things that really remains to be seen. That's another thing to look out for in the first preseason game is how's that shot look? I mean, does it look any different? Is it essentially the same thing? I don't know.
Yeah, and it's like kind of like what you were saying. It's like if Buddy Hield went to go ask Steph for some pointers, it's like okay, that can improve his game. But I mean, like you said, Steph and Davion, they're drastically different shooters. So it's just it's just hard to be like, all right, Steph, like what can I improve on? It's like everything, dude. Like at that point, right? It's like everything. Like yeah, he's probably like keep your elbow a little more tucked and follow through and stuff like that and all this stuff, Davion already knows. And I mean, I'm not saying Steph wasn't helpful. He probably was, but I mean, sometimes it just feels like working with those mechanics and like you said, like how much are you actually changing at this point?
Yeah. And are they beneficial changes or are you now just setting yourself back? Who
Mm-hmm.
knows? I don't doubt that Davion Mitchell, I wouldn't be surprised if Davion Mitchell struggles to shoot in his first 5 seasons in the NBA. And then like some big men that are like older now, like Al Horford or something
Like
like that.
JaVale McGee
Yeah, it's just like
in that
developing
video.
kind of a semi good shot. Just be like, yeah, all right, there it comes. To expect it to come together this season, I think might be a little too optimistic. But I think at the end of the day for him, his defense is elite. He's fantastic. He's a weapon on his own. Um, but in terms of being the guy that he probably thinks he can be, that the Kings imagine as a ceiling for him, it all just, as with a lot of guys, it comes down to shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Duarte, we kind of talked about Chris Duarte's health. I don't think we need to get too far into that. That kind of speaks for itself. The question for Vezenkov on the article is, will he be able to defend well enough to kind of make that highest possible impact, in a way that his defense isn't going to limit his minutes? And that's really like hard to say. But, one of the things I guess that we could ask is, maybe I'm making an assumption that if his defense isn't quite up to par, it's going to take his minutes away. Is that an assumption? Is his defense really going to play into his play time? Or is his shooting and his IQ and his toughness, his ability to get on the boards, is that going to be enough for him to, plug into the rotation without worrying too much about the defense? And also, I guess a side question to that is, if you really do believe that the defense comes into play, how fast is that gonna? I mean, like, is he gonna be immediately solid? And that's really what we're talking about with Vezenkov on the defensive end. Nobody expects him to be like a multi-positional defender, but it's just about holding your own against, objectively quicker and more athletic guys than what he played against in the EuroLeague.
I mean, I think Vezenkov will be fine. Or sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Is it Vezenkov? Vezenkov?
Vezenkov.
Vezenkov. Okay, Vezenkov. I mean, I think he'll be fine on defense. I don't think he's going to be playing the power forward position. Like, yeah, there's a lot of athletic fours now, but I mean, I think he's a strong guy. I think he'll be fine down there. And I don't know. The perimeter obviously is going to be a little bit of a different question. And that's what I think we're all more interested about. I think he'll be down. I think he'll be decent down low. Kind of like Nemanja Bjelica. I mean, that dude was,
That's the comparison that often gets brought up.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, maybe I am thinking too much about the defensive thing.
It's just like, Bjelica was slow. Like, I'm assuming Vezenkov is quicker than Bjelica ever was. And he held his own. He's at the 4 position. And yeah, I mean, that wasn't that long ago. And I get it. Forwards are getting even more and more athletic, but I think he'll be okay. And I mean, I think he's going to get his 25 minutes a night, 25 minutes a night. I don't really know how many minutes a night he'll get, actually, maybe 20. But I mean, I know he came over for a decent sized role, and I think that's what he's going to get, regardless of, maybe not regardless, but I think his offense is going to do most of the talking, though, at the same time.
Yeah, it's got to. But one of the things I really like about Vezenkov was that his intro presser, because he's a rookie, but he's an older rookie, and he gave off, he came at it and he said the things that you would expect a rookie to say, like, I know I got to work and put in the effort. Like, this is a challenge that I've got to rise up to. But it didn't just, like, sometimes rookies say that. They're young guys. Young people are kind of impressionable. They just say the things that they think they should say, where, maybe they believe it full, to heart, maybe not. But with Vezenkov, he said it with kind of the genuineness of a vet. So I think he knows the situation, and I think he knows what he has to do, and he'll figure it out. I feel like it's maybe reading too much into just listening to the guy and getting a feel of him. It seems like he's got the right mindset. Seems like he's not. I'm sure there's an expectation that he's going to have a role that was obviously a factor in him leaving EuroLeague. But I think at the same time, he knows what he's got to do. He's got a pretty good down to earth and realistic viewpoint of the fact that he's got to prove some things. So regardless, I think even if he runs into troubles defensively, I think he'll be able to figure it out. And maybe that's all you can ask for. But yeah, his offense should translate. I would hope.
Yeah, at least the shooting.
Yeah, for sure. That touch is insane.
Yeah.
But, we got a couple other guys, but I think, getting kind of looking at the time here, I think we'll settle in on one more guy. And we kind of touched upon this at the beginning with the context of, a month ago, it looked like the Kings were going to bring in a bunch of different centers, and it would be Len and then somebody at the competition, which would probably have been Nerlens Noel. But it appeared for a second there that it was going to be like Nerlens Noel, Neemias Queta, and Skal Labissière. Granted, Skal probably had little to no chance. But it would have been three guys competing, bringing the best out of each other in training camp, and then you'd get to take your pick out of the three of them for one roster spot. But then they signed McGee, and then days after that, James Ham reports that the Kings intend it to be Len and McGee, basically. Screw the other guys. And then the Kings, I think the next day, I don't know how it worked out, but I almost got a sense that it's like, I could just imagine like Nerlens Noel and his agent on the phone, like, you see this shit? you see this thing? And Queta too. And, they probably talked to him, and then they waived him to give him a chance to play elsewhere. As I said, Queta's on a 2-way contract in Boston. Seems like a good move for both of them. James Ham pointed out that it's like Robert Williams has had injury issues. Al Horford's old as hell. That's a chance for Queta to maybe do something. It'll be interesting to see what Boston fans think of him when they get to see him play. But sticking to McGee here, it kind of seemed like they're just going all in on McGee, who did not have a good season in Dallas really at all the season prior. He's 35. He's going to be 36 in January. And it's just one of those things. Are the Kings too bullish on him? Is he going to be a guy that can step up and play and make an impact? Or is he going to just be more relied upon for the fact that he's got 3 championships under his belt? He's the veteran presence. That was kind of a couple questions there, but it's just like, what are your thoughts on the whole thing? Do you think that was a little short-sighted to do that? And what do you expect out of McGee?
Yeah, I think it was short-sighted. I also feel like I think there's a lot going in here, so I might ramble. Stop me if I'm rambling, but so it's like I think it was short-sighted. Yeah, like of course you want the more competition. Competition brings the best out of everyone, right? Like maybe Noel was the better player. He's the younger player. I get he's not signed to a team like Queta is, but I mean, Noel was a guy the Kings were legit looking at like 2 years ago to be that backup, and now he didn't even get a chance to compete for the spot. You bring in a 35-year-old JaVale McGee. Yeah, JaVale McGee is a bigger name than Nerlens Noel and Keita, and has success in his career, 3 championships, and being a 35-year-old NBA player. Obviously, he's been around for a long time. That's what I'm saying, and so it's like I don't know. I feel like at that point it was just like. I was kind of surprised that JaVale signed here because it sounded like other teams were interested in him. But I'm like, why did he choose the Kings? Like, we have Noel and Keita. Like, he's just signing to a training camp deal. So I felt like he's like, I'll sign with you guys, but you're making sure that I'm going to be on this team. So I feel like that had to have kind of gone into it. Because, like, why would McGee be fighting with, like, Noel and Keita in training camp, right? Like, why would he sign here to compete when he can probably go get a guaranteed contract somewhere else, or just like a guaranteed like spot in the rotation, even if it's a third string center? And it probably isn't third string. It could be second string if Lynn struggled. I mean, Lynn was great at the end of last year, but like he really only played at the end of last year, so McGee's going to have plenty of opportunity to come in, and I think he knows that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they were a little bullish on it, like you said. I think they should have had the competition, but at the same time, like I don't know if McGee would have come over if the competition existed. It's like, well, if Noel does better, like you're getting cut. He probably would have gone elsewhere.
I think that's a fair point. You can't have the best of both worlds. So I concede that maybe a training camp competition of McGee, Noel, and Keita is probably never feasible given all the guys' interests and whatnot. But yeah, I think it's interesting the fact that they would, maybe this is speculation, but it's like if that was kind of the agreement, like, yeah, no, I'll join you guys, I want to play for you guys, but like, am I going to come join a training camp competition? At the end of the day, that's because he won 2 of his championships with the Warriors under Steve Kerr and Mike Brown was an assistant there. And one of the things that it comes down to for this whole question of being too bullish is Mike Brown too bullish on guys that he seems comfortable with. It was last year they let freaking Sam Merrill go, who might make the team with Cleveland this year, and they went ahead with Chima Moneke and KZ Okpala. They could have lost one of those guys. None of them finished the season. None of them looked particularly good. Moneke was not an NBA player, and it was almost like Mike Brown knew better. And of course, you got to lend some trust to your head coach to be able to make those decisions. But it's like, man, that didn't seem like it made any sense at all. The fact that we're talking about Alex Len only playing late in the season, Chimezie Metu, aside from like stretches of games where he looked solid as a backup, never looked like a backup center that you wanted to keep. I mean, there were always rumors about the Kings being kind of interested in maybe trying to acquire Noel. Never really happened after he got bought out, but trade conversation. I think there was that Bleacher Report article. I don't know. It's interesting to pan out. I think it's just worth asking these questions. And at the end of the day, it might not matter. I mean, if McGee's the second true center and really realistically, in terms of backing up Sabonis, the third guy behind Lyles/Len, it's not even going to be that big of an issue. Maybe it's nitpicking to point this out, but going down the line, especially when it comes to player evaluation and making those decisions without seeing the guys in training camp, I think that's just worth kind of keeping an eye on.
Yeah.
But
I think so too.
That kind of does it for different player questions. I don't know. I mean, any other player questions come to mind? Any new ones? Anything come up throughout this conversation?
No. Sorry, not off the top of my head.
We just did a good job covering it. I mean, like, we just covered it all. I don't think that there's...
Yeah. And there's going to be a lot more in the coming weeks for us for Cap City Crown and Kings Talk. Training camp, like John said, starts in a week on next Tuesday, or on Tuesday, because I guess you're not listening to this until at least Wednesday. Media day on Monday. Like, man, we're really close. The season's less than a month away, like 28 days away, about a month, but it's getting really close. Preseason starts in I think a couple weeks, and man, we're getting a lot closer. You're going to hear a lot more from us going forward.
Back on that weekly schedule.
Back on that weekly schedule. I hope you all enjoy listening to us. We all enjoy sharing our opinions with you and our thoughts. I don't really have much else to add, John. But I mean, if you do, feel free to speak or forever hold your peace.
I will hold my peace until next week because there'll be stuff to talk about next. It'd be nice to have extra stuff to talk about next week because media day doesn't always drive up. Like, remember last year's media day? It's like, oh my God, McNair didn't get an extension or something like that, and it's just like he didn't talk about it. He deflected on the question. I would really, really, really enjoy if we didn't have to talk about something like that for 30 minutes. Milk it. So stay tuned for next week.
Stay tuned for next week. I want to thank you as always for tuning in. And until next time, have a good one.